Our first KVK in 1960 is finally over, and after personally losing KVK after KVK after KVK after KVK, we have finally won. In today's video, we are going to be talking about our KVK with 1960 against 2489, giving a recap for those that were not able to watch the multiple hours and days of streams, looking at the current KVK rankings as well as the KVK stats, and finally, the future KVKs of 1960. We already made a video recapping our Zone 5 fight against 2489, that video will be in the card in the top right, but long story short, we were able to defeat 2489 and secure the Holy Site, giving us a little bit of an advantage going on for the rest of the KVK. The next fight we had against 2489 were the altar fights. The first altar was highly contested. I believe we were fighting an hour before the altar opened, and it was actually a back and forth fight for quite some time. In fact, when they logged on, they were actually at our pass. For those that don't know, in altars, each player could only use one march, meaning that fighting with your team, fighting in a ball, and fighting really disciplined is very important. Especially fighting against a great kingdom like 2489, it was really tough to start to get momentum. It was a back and forth because of the refresh timers. We would be able to push them back, and then our ball would be yellow, we would push them, and then they would push us back, and there's this pendulum going back and forth until we started to get more people online. One thing that I'll note about this KVK is that 1960 have more members than 489. This is really apparent during the altars because as soon as we started getting people online, the altar fights started to get more and more dominant. The marches I used for these altars was 1 infantry and 1 archer march. My infantry march was Liu Che with Alex, and my archer march was Zhuge Liang and Herman. To be honest, I can't really give you a justification behind the Liu Che and Alex. This was before I invested in Philip with a swap, and to be honest, I was on vacation while this fight was going on, so I just used my first infantry preset that was available. With about 10 minutes to go until the altar opened, we finally got firm control of the altar and pretty much held it until the altar ended. It was a good fight from 489, but ultimately we won the first altar fight against them. The second altar fight was actually the first stream of the year, and this one was very similar to the first altar fight. It was a back and forth as well, where they would be able to push us, their marches would become yellow, then we'd be able to push them, then our marches would become yellow, and it became a back and forth until we got more numbers. We were able to secure the altar and the fight lasted about 2 hours, but at the end of the day, it was a repeat of altar 1 and we were able to secure round 2 of the altars. We had a third and final altar before the pass 7, but 2489 decided to not contest that one as it was during their downtime, so we had a peaceful couple of days until our next fights during pass 7. During that time, I was able to essentially max my open field tech, getting Call Charms 2 to level 10, which gives them the maximum troop capacity, and improve morales to level 10, which gives the all damage. I used a 2-2-2 setup for this pass, 2 infantry, 2 archers, and 2 cavalry. My 2 infantry marches was Liu Che and Alex, and Ragnar with Scipio. My 2 archer marches was Zhuge Liang and Herman Prime, with Ashurbanipal Paul and YSG. And finally, my 2 cavalry marches was Nevsky and Joan, with Hua Qibing and Belisarius Prime. Fun fact about me, Pass 7s are not my favorite fights. The Pass 7 in King of All Britain is very similar to the Pass 7 in Heroic Anthem, where it leads into Zone 6s, which both sides can build a fort wall, as well as carpet, so that there can't be any fort drops behind the fort wall. That is what 489 decided to do. 960, being a little bit more confident, decided not to carpet their Zone 6, but either way, the Pass 7 fights tend to be a stalemate in most KVKs. As the pass opened, both sides started swarming it down immediately. It came down to a 50-50 in terms of who got the pass first, but luckily, 1960 was able to get the pass first, and the war started from there. One thing I'll say about 2489 this KVK is that their pass opening activity was amazing. That was reflected in Pass 7 particularly because multiple times in the first couple of hours of the pass opening, they were able to make us go back behind the pass and have to regroup. It was a back and forth where we were able to push them back to their territory, they were able to push us back to the pass, but as time progressed and they started getting deeper into the downtime as a majority Asian time zone KD, 1960 started to take advantage. We were able to push them out of their territory, back into their cities, start burning their flags, start burning some of their forts, but at the end of the day, they continued to backport and backport and backport, and as the days went on, it became more and more apparent that continuing to fight in this zone would not result in anything, leading to the stalemate which happened before Kingsland. Interestingly enough, on day 3 of our past 7, that is when the commander swap event released, as well as King Arthur, the best cavalry commander in the game. So when I woke up for day 3, I was able to do my swaps for Arthur and Philip, put those into my open field lineup, and get ready to use those during past 7s, and break in my marches before Kingsland the next day. By this time, I unlocked my 7 marches to get ready for Kingsland. I ran a 3-2-2 setup this time, with 3 cavalry marches, 2 infantry marches, 2 archer marches. My 3 cavalry marches was Huakibing and Arthur, Nevsky with William, and finally, Joan with Belisarius Prime. My 2 infantry marches was Luce with the newly swapped Philip, and Ragnar with Scipio. Finally, my 2 archer marches did not change, with Zhuge Liang and Herman, and Ashurbanipal with YSG. Kingsland, like in every KVK, is the zone to end all zones, the climax of the KVK, where in this case in King of All Britain, all 4 camps were able to fight with and against each other for the first time. And even though 1961 Zone 5 won altars and stalemated in past 7, I'd say we had a little bit of an advantage, but a stalemate there, even with all those victories, none of that would matter if we flopped in Kingsland. So there was a lot of pressure going into this KL to make sure that we were able to perform to our standards, to make sure that I was able to perform to my standards and get the job done. Before Kingsland, I was actually pretty low on troops because in this KVK there is a stratagem called Do or Die, which gives you 10% all damage at a cost of 2% of your sevs turning into deads. And because we've been open fielding in Zone 5 in past 7, I was actually getting pretty low on troops. So I trained up before Kingsland, literally 30 minutes before Kingsland on stream, and then I was joined by my good friend Redline. Redline was one of the main people that got me into 1960, that kind of convinced me to migrate here, and one of the main reasons I wanted to is so that we could do collaborations such as this stream. So shout out to Redline. Majority of my Kingsland fighting, Redline was in voice, making sure that we were staying awake and that we were staying engaged. As Kingsland opened, 1960 balled up and yet again had another 1v1 against 2489. It was ultimately a back and forth fight, and as I said earlier, 2489's pass openings are really good. They had a lot of open field presence and even pushed us off of a couple flags. There's a rush to grab land as Skillful Craftsman was still going on, especially because this Kingsland is the smallest Kingsland in Rise of Kingdoms. Teleport space in this Kingsland is everything, and each camp had to make sure that they were able to grab as much territory as possible before their opponents did. Luckily for 1960, we have a dedicated team of builders, a dedicated team of leadership that continue to build flags up towards 2489. Once everything settled, I would say that we had a bit of a flag advantage, although 2489 had a solid amount of flags as well. That's where things started to stalemate. There was a huge open field brawl against 2489 for a couple hours. We were able to burn a couple of their flags, but they were actually able to push us off and burn a couple of ours as well. Personally, it was a struggle to find teleport space near the front, so I was actually taking a very long time to refresh whenever I got sad-faced. But ultimately, Kingsland ended up getting smoother and smoother as 489 started to get deeper and deeper into their downtime. However, as I knew this zone meant everything, I was also filling rallies, swarming flags, and I ended up running out of troops in the middle of Kingsland, forcing me to train. And since we were busy during fighting, I wanted to use my expansions to make sure I could train as fast as possible. And, well, this happened. I'm training archers. Oh no! I used 172. Oh no! I can't believe I used all 172 of my 20k reserves. But I continued fighting, and we continued fighting against 2489, and we were eventually able to burn them back, especially during their downtime. On the other side of things, 1188 and 1316, also Asian time zone KDs, were getting pushed back by 1262 and 1846. However, they weren't free burning and continued to defend their flags and be stubborn, trying to hold off their downtime. At around reset, 1846 went into their downtime, and 1188 and 1316 went to attack. 1960 also brought a ball there a couple times, just making sure that 1188 and 1316 could transition into their uptime at a reasonable pace, allowing them to burn out to 1262 and 1846 with a full head of steam. After that, both sides continued to push in Kingsland. 2489 got up into their uptime, but at that point 1960 had gained so much territory that it was hard for 2489 to get any momentum. And since this Kingsland is super small, as soon as you fall asleep, it's pretty much over for you. I ended up streaming 16 hours straight for the first day of Kingsland to make sure that the snowballs continued rolling. And when I woke up for day 2, 2489, 1262, and 1846 have already lost too much land to be competitive in this Kingsland. Outside of a couple luches, it looked like the fight was over. It took about a day and a half for this Kingsland to end, but ultimately, 1960 and our allies 1188 and 1316 took the W.